In this Project 1 demo, I want to show you a couple of ways to approach doing a black and white illustration here in Adobe Illustrator. So to start this off, I have this beautiful sketch from Ariana Reimer, and she's got this beautiful, I don't know if that's like a jackalope or whatever you want to call it, but she's got this beautiful drawing, very elegant. I love the cross-hatching and things that are going on here, and I want to create some of that detail. Okay, so I'm going to quit preview, and I'm going to go ahead and start up Adobe Illustrator. So I already have my panels set. I dragged my layers panel out, and your first project will be 10 inches wide by 15 inches high. Okay, they don't make a 10 by 15 sheet of paper. Okay, the closest to that, the one that's a little bigger, is 11 by 17, which is tabloid. So the way you're going to start Project 1 is you go to File and New. Right up here, you click Print. Right down below, you say View All Presets because you want tabloid. Now, tabloid is supposed to be 11 by 17, but right over here, it doesn't say 11 by 17, and that's because we're set to point. So you want to make your measurements inches. So I know it is truly 11 inches wide by 17 inches high, a vertical sheet of paper, and I click Create. Now, like I've shown you, let's get rid of that. Like I've shown you before, all Illustrator files, new files, will start with a blank sheet of paper. And we know our illustration needs to be 10 by 15. So what I'm going to do is go to my rectangle tool, click once on it. Then I'm going to come out near the upper left corner, not right on it, but near it. And I'm going to click once. That's going to bring up the rectangle dialog box. So now I can type in the exact measurements. 11 inches wide by, that's 10 inches wide. Got to make sure. My page is 11 by 17. My illustration is 10 by 15. Okay, so when I click OK, that's how big the illustration should be. I'll make the borders a little thicker so you can see that. If it helps you to visualize it, click on the fill and fill it with a color. So that's how big our illustration needs to be on this page. I can see I'm a little bit off center, so I'll use my left arrow or right arrow, up and down arrow, just to kind of visually center it on the page like that. I'm going to click on this, and again, you can leave the color in there if it helps you to visualize, or you can hit the question mark key to get rid of the color, but I'm going to keep it on here just to help me to see things. Then when I click outside, I'm going to go to File and Place in order to trace. Okay, what I have to do is go out to my desktop and find that scan that I have. So let's see if I can find that. I forgot where I put that. So make sure you are keeping track. I got so much junk all over my desktop here. There we go. Lesson number 1 is clean up your desktop. But here we go. Black and white project. I'm going to double click to open that folder. There is my scan. I want to make sure I have no check marks across the bottom. And then when I click place, I get a little graphics cursor here that shows me what I'm about to place on the page. So what you want to do is start just above and outside this rectangle, and I'm going to click and drag all the way down, all the way past the bottom edge. You got to make sure your drawing is a little bit bigger than this box. So when I let go of the mouse, I'm going to go to Object menu, Arrange, Send to Back. And now I can take the black arrow and select both of those. I'll click and drag all the way across the green rectangle and the scan, now that the scan is behind it. And I will go again to Object, all the way down to Clipping Mask, and Make. So there is my drawing at 10 by 15. But I can see I wasn't really right with the proportions right now. Some of it is getting cut off. Some of it is showing too much border. I just want the character in a nice scene. Now that I look at this, I don't really want the border. So I click outside. Then I go to my white arrow. Your white arrow can select what is inside of a clipping mask. So I'm going to click on the photo. You could see the basic outline extends past the edge of the clipping mask. And then I go to my free transform tool. I'll click on it. Then, to keep from distorting my photo, I click the top button called Constrain, which means don't distort, basically. So I'm going to go to this corner, click and drag it up, and then I'll let go right there. And I'm going to go to my white arrow. I still have the photo selected, so I don't like this border down here. So I can hit the down arrow key a few times and nudge that photo down. Okay, still got a little bit of border there and up there. So I'll click on my free transform again. Constrain again. And I'll pull the bottom corner down just a little bit more. Go to my white arrow. I can hit the up arrow key a couple of times just to get this kind of centered in this scene. And I like the way that's looking right there. There is my 10 by 15 illustration. I'm going to double click to the right. Remember the layers on your the layers that you use for your scans, you're going to set them up as template. I'm going to dim that image down to about 30%. There we go. Make it nice and light so I can draw on top of it. And that template layer is locked, so you leave it alone. I'm going to create a brand new layer. And I am going to call this layer, by double clicking the name, let's call this line art. What I'm going to do now that I have my file set up, I'm going to save my progress. So I'll go to File menu, Save for the first time. And I'm going to call this last name, first name, project 1. On my black and white folder, or in my black and white folder, it's an Illustrator file. I click Save, and I just click OK. So now, what I'm going to do is zoom in on this little character. And I really like this organic kind of look to the sketch, but I also like this very simplified, shape-oriented look to the antlers. Okay, so what I'm going to do, on a brand new layer, D for default colors, I will click on the fill and hit the question mark key. And then before I even draw the antlers, I want to show you how to make a brush tip so we can ink in all these lines. Okay, the reason why I want to do inking is the fact that if you take your pen tool and you start to draw along an edge right here, that line will be the same thickness all the way around, like that. There's no variation to it. It's very mechanical. So if I select it and made the stroke 2 or 3 or 4, it doesn't change its appearance. So it doesn't really go with a very organic character like this. So I'm going to select that with my black arrow and delete it. I'll reset everything by hitting D for default colors. Click on the white fill and hit the question mark key. And then I'm going to pull out my brushes panel. I want to use brushes to help me to ink in this drawing. So I'll go to brushes, click and drag that out. And the reason why I drag that out, like the layers, is I can pull the bottom edge down. Every Illustrator file you start will start with these brushes right here. And these are ones that I don't want to use for this project. So in order to get those out of my way and kind of clear things off, I'm going to click once on the bottom. Then I hold Shift and click. So I select 2, Shift click, Shift click. I'm going to select the bottom 4. You cannot delete the basic brush, so I don't even bother with that. Okay, but I will click the bottom and shift click, shift click, shift click. So I select those 4 and I click on the trash. Yes, I want to delete those 4. I am going to make up my own brush before I do any drawing here. And the simplest way to do that is by drawing what I call a toothpick. So right next to the T for type, you have a line segment. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'll come out on the screen. And all I have to do is hold my shift key. When you are creating a brush tip, you have to make it a horizontal line. So just so you could see, I'll do it in this clear area right here. Hold shift and I'll drag a line about like that. It's nothing crazy, just a simple line like that. Now when I go to my black arrow, I want to be able to see that line a little more detailed. So I'm going to come up here to the stroke and bump it up to 2 points, just a little thicker like that. Okay, you can see all this really looks like is a long, skinny rectangle. It's chopped off on the ends. It's the same thickness all the way through. So I select it, and the key ingredient here, the trick, is that there should be no fill. Okay, just a solid black line. What I do is I come right up here to my width profiles. I'll click where it says uniform so I can see the list. And I want width profile 1. It's pointed on the ends like a toothpick. So when I click that and I click outside, I've got a nice, sharp, pointed toothpick. This one toothpick will allow me to ink this entire drawing. So I take my black arrow and click on it. Then I click and drag and I put it in the brushes panel. You're going to see a little plus right here. Now, in order for that to work, you got to make sure your bounding box is turned off. So notice under View menu, if it says Show my bounding box, that means I've already turned it off. See, I don't want to click and see these little nodes right here. Okay, View, Hide bounding box. Okay, let me show you why you want to do that. If you are showing your bounding box, it's a transformation tool, but if you have it and you go to drag, you might accidentally pull this line apart. Okay, so I don't need to transform anything on this line. So I'm going to go to View, Hide my bounding box. That way all I see is the anchor points that are part of the line. I'm going to click and drag it over onto my brushes. I get that green circle with the plus because I'm going to add it to my brushes when I let go of my mouse. And it's going to ask me, what type of brush are you trying to create? So you want an art brush. All you have to do is click OK and click OK. Now that has been added to your brushes panel, so you can select this original toothpick and delete it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up here, and I've kind of changed my mind. I really want this character to be built in pieces. So I'm going to go to my top layer, and instead of calling that line art, I'm going to double click, and we'll call that black antlers. Okay, what I'm going to do with that is, since they're going to be just a big solid silhouette type of shape, I'm going to draw them with the pen tool. D for default colors, click on my white, hit the question mark key because I'm not drawing white antlers, and I'll start right here. I'll click and drag up, hold Option for a corner, drag out, hold Option for a corner, drag back down, Option for a corner, and I'll go up here, Option for a corner, and I'll come up to there, Option for a corner, and we'll come back down to that edge, Option for a corner, and we'll go right there, Option for a corner, we'll drag up to here, Option for a corner, and we'll drag back down to there, Option for a corner, drag up to the tip of the antler, Option for a corner. I told you before, you're going to love your Option key here in Illustrator. Let's go right there. Option for a corner, drag down this edge right here. I'll go way over to there, get a nice long smooth curve along the edge of that antler. I can hold my space bar for the hand tool and pull that down. Option for a corner, we'll add a little bump right there. Option for a corner, option for a corner, and we'll add a few little bumps right up here. Option for a corner, and let's come back down right there. Option for a corner, and we'll go way up here to get a nice smooth curve to that end of that antler. Option for a corner, and I'll come back down the opposite direction. Make a little bump right there. Option for a corner, option for a corner, and we'll come back down, get in a couple more really smooth curves right here. Add a little bump, make it look a little more natural there. Option for a corner and option to end at a corner. So just to see what that looks like, I'm going to take my black arrow, select it. The toolbox is telling me that's a black stroke right there, a black outline, but I can click the curved arrow and turn it into a black fill. Once I have finished a particular part of an illustration and I like that, Command S or Control S to save your progress on a PC. I just have to click the arrow again, come back to outlines, and I'll do the other antler. So I'll just start that right on the edge of the head, go up here, and we'll go up. Option for a corner, come back down. Option for a corner, option for a corner, and we'll go right through that other antler right here. Option for a corner, and let's go down to that edge. Option for a corner, come back up to this point. Option for a corner, option for a corner, option for another corner. These antlers are really sharp. So turn around that edge right there. Come down this side. Option for a corner. We'll add a little bump to the antler right there. Oops. Let's go here. And then up. Almost forgot that really long point. Option for a corner. And I'll come down right to there. Option for a corner. And I'll go all the way up to get a nice long smooth curve on the end of that antler. Option for a corner. Come down the opposite side right here. Maybe make a little point. Option for a corner. And we'll come around these curves right here. Right up toward the end of the head right there. Option for a corner and option to end at a corner. I take my black arrow, select it, and I click the curved arrow to change it from a black stroke into a black fill. So there are my two antlers. Okay, every time a layer is done, lock it. Those antlers are done. Okay, I'm going to make another brand new layer to draw on. I don't like green anchor points. To me, they're always hard to see. So I'm going to double click on the right. And I'm going to set my anchor points to, let's say, red again. I just always prefer red anchor points. And I'm going to call this the eye. I'll make a layer just for that eye. I'm going to zoom back in on that real close. And I'm going to hit D for default colors. I'm on a brand new layer. I click on the white fill, hit the question mark key, and then I go to my brush. Okay, when you click on the brush, the first thing you want to do is double click on it, and you can check out how the brush is set up to work, what its settings are. Okay, you don't want this to go all the way to the left, because if your hand shakes, it's going to be very accurate. You're going to get a bunch of bumps on your line. I'm going to push this just a little bit more to the right. I really do want to make nice smooth curves. I don't want it too smooth because that's like ironing out a shirt. It's just going to oversimplify. So I think this ought to be good right here. I'm not going to fill any of my brush strokes that I make. I'm not going to keep them selected. This is perfect right here. That's default. And I click OK. Then, once you have your paintbrush, you click on the brush tip. And the whole idea of this brush tip is I can click and drag and practice. And then right up here, if I go to 2 points, I don't have to recreate a brush. I can go up to 3 points and I don't have to recreate a brush. Okay, I've got the same brush tip, it's just based on the stroke weight. So I'm going to take my black arrow and select and delete those. We'll set it back down right here to 1. And I'll go to my brush. And I'm going to start right here. I'm going to click and drag up and over the edge of this eye. And maybe come around and let go right there. Okay, that looks pretty good. But I wanted a double edge to this. So I'm going to select that and delete it. I want to go on this outer edge more. So I'm going to go right out here along that outside edge. Come all the way down and go around that turn right there. Good. Now, what you don't want to do with your brush is start right from the end of this black line, because when you go around, that tip is going to meet up with that tip, and they're going to do this funny thing right here. Okay, and I don't want that happening. So one word of advice for using the brush is every time you let go, and I'll zoom in so you can see this. Every time I come around and let go, back up. Overlap the ends of your brush strokes. So I'll start here, click and drag, and go around this outside edge, right up to there. And now it looks like they connect. Okay, I'll start right here, click and drag, and we'll go around the upper edge of the eye, right there. Maybe curl that around to this edge. There we go. And then I'm going to start right here, click and drag down. And we'll go into the corner right there, overlap the edge like that. And what I want to do is make a round edge for the eyeball. But you don't want to start right here, because when you let go, it's not going to look right. You're going to have these weird curves right in here, and then it gets small. So what I'm going to do is select that and delete it. And I'm going to go past the edge. Okay, very, very important. I'm going to take my brush and start out here and go up past the edge like that. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to start outside, go up and around right there, and another one right out there. A little mess. So then when I zoom in, I'm going to look for any overlapping edges, like right here. That went past the edge, so I just pull that down with my white arrow, kind of tuck it underneath the other line. These 2 points don't exactly meet, so I can click here, kind of move that up so they look a little more connected, and then bend this in. So I get a nice point right in there, nice little tapered point. Okay. What I want is this line right here to start here and end here. So I'm going to select that brush, and here is the trick. You take your eraser, but you don't erase a brush tip like this. I'm going to show you why. If I take my brush, which is really, really small, so on my keyboard to the right of the letter P are 2 bracket keys. The right bracket key will make my eraser brush tip bigger. The left bracket key right next to the letter P will make it smaller. And watch what happens. The ends of my brushes are always sharp and pointed. But if I click and drag and erase right there, it's just going to move the point somewhere else. That's not what I was going for. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to Edit, Undo. And you can tell this is a brush tip because the line goes right down the center. What I want to do is turn this into a tube of color. So I can select a line that I painted with my brush and go to Object, Expand the Appearance. So now there's not a line going down the center. It's the outer edge and an inner edge, as if I traced it on both sides with my pen tool. Okay, when you have it selected, that's the only thing you're going to be able to erase. So when I go to my eraser tool and I start scraping that off right up to the edge of this inner black, it will stop. It won't go past that edge right there. Same thing here. It's going past that edge. So I'll scrape it right to the black. And now I've got a nice cut line right there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with these. I'll click and drag and select them. The line is running down the middle, so these are brush strokes. Object menu, expand the appearance, and now I could just scrape these off right up to the edge or the middle of that black. I'll click and drag, and I'll scrape that right through the middle of that black, and now I have a nice eyeball. Okay, I'm going to zoom back in. Now that I have black, I'm going to go to my ellipse tool, click and drag right there. I can hold my space bar and move my mouse so I can reposition that if necessary. Then I'm going to click and drag another tiny little circle right here. And I'm going to hit D for default colors. Click on the white or the black stroke and hit the question mark key. I want that to be a white highlight right there. I'm not worried about filling in any of that part yet. Okay, because I'm going to fill in the whole head white, and the white will go right behind the eyeball anyway. But now that that is done, I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to make another brand new layer. I'll double click to the right. I love my red anchor points here. And I'm going to call that hair lines. Okay, brand new layer. D for default colors. I'm going to click on my white fill, hit the question mark key, and I'm going to zoom in once. I'm going to go to my brush, click on my brush stroke right there, and just to see how this looks, I'm going to paint a line right there. That looks pretty good, but I want some of these to be bold, some to be a little thinner. So I might mix it up and go, okay, let's do a bold line right there, and maybe a bold line right there. And then I'm going to make a few lines a little thinner. So we'll do a smaller line right there, and a smaller line right there. And then I can make a couple even more thin. Do little detailed lines right here. And come around like that. Do a couple of curves for the hairs right here. And maybe we'll set that back up to 0.75. Go in with a few bolder lines right here. Come back in with a 0.5, little thinner detail lines right here. Like that. And then I'll come in, okay, 0.5. Then the next one will be 0.6. And we'll gradually start to build up the thickness of these lines right here. These are 0.6. Then right down toward the front, I'll highlight that and go 0.7. And these will be even bolder lines right here. There we go. And we'll do some of those 0.7 lines right up in here. Just a couple more here to fill out this face. Clicking and dragging. There you go. And this looks like it has a flat tip, so I'll just draw that with my pen tool. So I can switch around from the brush to the pen tool. Option key for a corner. We'll come back around this way. Option key and option key to close at a corner. I click the little arrow. So now I got that little black line or black shape. Now I want to define the front edge of the head. So I'm just going to click on one of these lines and my toolbox gets reset. That's good. So now I can take my brush and we'll start right here, just kind of make a little bump right there. And then we'll go right off that edge, right along the edge of that antler, come down like that. Then I'll back up a little bit, click and drag another line that comes down, maybe overlap the edge right there. Back up a little bit, click and drag another line that comes down to there. I'll back up, click and drag another line for that nose right there. And I don't like how smooth that went, so I'm going to go to Edit, Undo. We'll click and drag again and see. Oops, I don't like that. Let's click and drag. See if I can stop and wait a second, then come out. There we go, got a little more of a bump. I don't like how thin this is, so I'm just going to back up and do another line that's a little further apart like that. Almost like a parallel that kind of goes back into the line. There we go. I thickened up that area. That looks cool. All right, this whole area, all these hairs right down here look like they're black. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit, go past that edge just to define where that meets. And then I'm going to switch back to my pen tool. So I'll start right here. Click and drag up, and then I'll hold Option for a corner, come down right to here. Option for a corner, and we'll come back up right there. Option for a corner, I'll go around this curve. Option for a corner. So let's go a couple more points here. There we go. I don't like how that looked. Let's go further down. There we go. Option for a corner, come around. Option for a corner, we'll do an extra little tuft of hair right there. Come around and around right there. Option for a corner, come back up. Option for a corner, we'll go down and up. Option for a corner, come back around this curve right here and go right back up to the top. Overlap the edge right there. And Option key to end at a corner. Then I click the curved arrow. So here's what my little jackalope is looking like right now. We'll turn off the scan. There we go. That's what I have so far. Command S. Almost forgot to do that. And all I'm going to work on is this character's head. So if I want to keep brushing, I take my black arrow, click on the brush. My toolbox gets reset so I can keep doing brushes like that. And I'm going to go right out here. We'll just click and drag right there. Then I'll back up, do another line right there. I tend to add details as I go. I'll back up, click and drag, and come around that turn right there. Back up, and then I'll click and drag right up there, make another little point. Back up, come back up there, and we'll make a little point like that. Click and drag from there, make another little point. I can fix that bump later. Back up, click and drag, make another point. Back up, click and drag, and make another point. Click and drag up and over right there. Back up, click and drag up and over. And then I'll just back up a little bit and meet that line right there and come right down like that. I tend to add these little kind of overlapping segments like that. If I get two lines that don't meet, you zoom in, take your white arrow and bend it so it can sit right over the first one. Now I get two lines that look like one. If this bump went up too high, I click on it and pull that back down. I just reshape the line right there. So no one will know we were there. Okay, so I like the look of that ear. Now here's some really bold shadows. So I'm going to take my brush and we'll set that up to 3. And I'll just click and drag a bold shadow line right there. Maybe 3 is a little too heavy. Let's go 2.5. That looks good. We'll do another one right here. And we'll do another one right there, another one right there, another one right there. And we'll do one that kind of comes off this edge right here. We'll do one that comes around this edge, like that. Got a nice curve right there. Notice how I overlap the end of the line. I'm not going to stop on the edge. I overlap the edge. There we go. Maybe add one more line right there to thicken that up. I love it. Let's come back down to 1, and I can add maybe an extra little detail line right there. Just kind of add a few more details in the ear area here. Add a few more right there. And then we'll do the rest of these little hatching lines on the rest of this ear. So hit some right there. Do a couple hatching lines right in here. The rest of the ear, and we'll go right there. Okay, then I've got some bolder lines here, so I'll start right here, come down and up, back up a little bit, then I'll go up right there, then I'll back up and do a few more lines right there, and I'll add a few more lines right off the curve of kind of that jawline right there. That looks good. I'll click and drag down and then back up a little bit, drag a few more lines here, drag a few more lines, drag a few more, and then I'm going to thicken up that brush to 2 points. So I can go bolder lines along the back edge of the head right there. Go right up in there. Back up a little bit, overlap the ends of your lines. Back up a little bit, overlap the ends of your lines. Back up a little bit, overlap the ends of your lines. Back up a little bit, and we'll go right up in there. Cool. Now I'm going to switch that back to 1 point, and we'll just finish off the rest of these little hairs along the bottom edge of our jackalope's head, like that. She's got a couple little sketchy lines right here to really add the fur texture, and got a couple little lines right here. So add a few like that. There we go. Make a line right off the edge of the eye. And I'm looking at, she's got some shading right here. So what I'm going to do is just add a few lines over the edge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That just made a big mess. So I'm going to select with my black arrow. Just hit the tips of those lines. I can hold shift and hit a few more. Hold shift and hit a few more. You don't want to hit anything else. Shift key, shift key. Now remember, these are all brush strokes. I can see the line going right down the middle. So I'm going to convert them. Object menu, expand their appearance into tubes of color, where my eraser can now go right along the edge of that line, right where they crisscross, and I scrape them off like that. Scrape them off right there. And then I just left with the other tips on the eyeball that I don't need. So I'll just scrape all these away or erase them. And I have all those thick lines ending right at the thickest part of the line. That looks good. Okay, so here's my little characters so far. Cool. Now, I'm going to hit Command S, and wow, I forgot the other ear. So let's keep going. We got hairlines here. So if I want to reset, I just take my black arrow, click on that line. My toolbox gets reset so I can keep drawing. So we'll go right here, up and over the edge. We'll go up and over. Click and drag up and over. click and drag up and over, back up, draw another line, back up, draw another line right there, back up, overlap the ends of your lines, click and drag up and over, back up, so they look like they're connected better, right there. Cool. If that doesn't look right, I can zoom in. I don't like that little bump right there. So I take my white arrow, just kind of move that and bend and tweak that line. We'll take the end of this line and move it up and bend and tweak that. So they look like they connect better right there. Okay, and here's the outer edge of the ear. So now I'm going to take my brush, set it up to a 2, and we'll do some of these interior lines right here. Let's go right there, right there, right there. That's looking pretty good. Do one more right up in there. And we'll do some thicker lines down in here. Another thicker line right there. Another thicker line right there. And right there. And then I could just go right back on top of these and kind of add a gap between them like this. Add a gap between them like that. Okay, that looks good. Let's set this back down to 1. And we'll just do a couple more hatching lines to fill out this ear. Okay, then I zoom in and I start cleaning up. So right here, this line went way past the edge of the other ear. So if I want to erase where they overlapped, Object menu, expand appearance, so my brush becomes a tube, and that eraser can erase the overlapping part of that tube right there. So they stop. I'm going to take my white arrow and just kind of make sure my lines look like they meet. Like right here, the tip of that line is sticking out. So I'm going to put it right over the black so it looks like it blends right into that edge. I'm going to take this line right here. There's a little gap, so I'm going to push it into that black so they look like they connect. I'll take this one and maybe add a little bit more of a definition, more refined, so it really looks like I wanted it to stand out. And right down here, there's some gaps. So when you have little gaps like this, if you press and hold down on your paintbrush, you can go to your blob brush. And what your blob brush does is creates tubes of color. So again, if the brush tip is too small, I hold down the right bracket key. If I want it to be smaller, the left bracket next to the letter P. And just to show you what this does, if I click and drag and let go, view that in outline mode, it drew a shape right there. It created that shape. View and preview. So I can keep drawing or painting big blobs of color, and they all get added together as one. So if I have a little bit of a gap, I just blob right over it and fill it in. So now here is our character's head. We'll turn off our scan. That's looking really good. Command S. I really like that look. But now I want to create a background for this character. That's just the character that's in the foreground. What else am I going to put? So if I press and hold, I come back to my brush, and let's do one more line right up here to define that as an extra hair. There we go. Okay, when a layer is done, let's make that a little thicker. Now I'm being a perfectionist here. Okay, lock the layer. All right. Now, I'm going to make, let's just say we want a big design behind this character. So I'm going to go behind means below. I'll create a brand new layer again. And I'm going to go with just an ellipse, a circle. So if I start right on the eyeball, I can hold Shift for a circle, Option to draw from the center of that eyeball. I'm going to make a pretty big circle right about here. Something like that. Okay, I'll just move that over a little bit, kind of more center it behind the head. I'll add a little bit of a border right here. We'll make it a little thicker. And you could see, even though I'm underneath the drawing, it goes right through the drawing. Plus, watch what happens to this character's head when I fill this circle with a pattern. So I'm going to come down here to swatches. In the bottom left corner, you have swatch libraries. And way down here are patterns. Anything that says basic is going to be a black and white pattern. So let's say I want to fill the area behind this figure with line patterns. Okay, so I've got all these horizontal lines. I've got vertical lines here. Let's see if I click one of these guys right here. Okay, let's try another one. Ooh, that's terrible. These are all looking terrible. Okay, I like that. Now I can't see my character. What the heck? And this is under the character, or behind the character. So what you have to keep in mind is when I drew this, all I drew was lines. There is no color there. Okay, the color is the white of the paper. So the problem is, if I made this layer, you will see right through that character's head. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off the eyeball, make another brand new layer, and I will call this layer, let's call it rabbit, rabbit head fill. I'll set my anchor points to my ever-loving red. Click OK. I'm on a brand new layer, D for default colors, and crazy me, I should hit Command S, keep saving my progress. But I'm going to look at what I have to draw before I do it, because when I zoom in, I really want all my lines looking like they're connecting around the outside edge of this character. A character would have an outline, so that goes all the way around, comes down, looks like it connects right there, looks like it connects right there, and then right there is a weird little gap. So I'm going to take my white arrow, unlock these layers for a second, and I'm going to move that so it goes into the black, so they look like they connect. Here's a tiny, tiny little gap, so let's push that in so they look like they connect. Push it in so they look like they connect. Push it in. Overlap the edges of your shapes. I cannot stress that enough. So now everything looks like it connects, like one solid rabbit head. Okay, I have everything else looking like they connect right around here. I want that to come into the black right there. All this looks like it connects. All this looks like it connects. So I have one big connecting border, because this rabbit's head should look solid, so it should have a solid outline. And now it does. Okay, so I'll lock my line art layers, and here's my layer called Rabbit Fill. Okay, just to help me to see what I'm drawing, even though this is a black and white project, I'm going to hit D for default colors, and I'm going to fill this rabbit's head pink. Okay, I'll click on the black stroke, hit the question mark key, and I'm going to zoom in even closer. Real close. Underneath locked layers. That's really important. These layers are done. I'm going to work under them. When you work under, lock the ones above. Now I take my pen tool and I'm going to trace right down the middle of this black. And the further I go, the more you're going to start to see a fill color. So I don't have to be real precise. I just need to focus going right down the middle of the black, like that. And this fill is going to tuck underneath my drawing because I'm working on a layer underneath the line art. Okay, that's the secret. So I'll just go right around here and we'll cut right down through this ear, or this piece of hair, right around this turn. I'm going to come right down into that corner and come back around. go up, and turn and come down. And I'm just tucking the edge of this pink shape under the edge of the black lines. Right down the middle. You can't go wrong. So I'll just keep going up here. Keep going, and just keep tucking underneath the edge of the black. That's why I wanted to make sure all my black lines look like they connect. So go right there, down to there, up to here. And let's say you're drawing and you accidentally do this. Keep going. Okay, like I said before, if you make a couple of mistakes, Illustrator's really good at correcting mistakes. So if I come up here and I accidentally do that, keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And I'll come around here, turn, and go up. And if I'm drawing like this and I make a little bit of a mistake like that, it's no big deal. I'm going to keep going around the entire shape. Okay? Again, that's why I wanted these black lines to all look like they connect. Because this pink is going to make this rabbit's head really look solid. Okay, we'll go up. Around, around, stop, and go up. Then come back down. Just always sneaking around right underneath these black edges here. Come back up, turn and go back down. And we're getting close. I can feel it. Go all the way down, right underneath the black antlers and back to the start. So now when I zoom out, I have that. Okay? I'll zoom in and look for any mistakes. So there's a glaring mistake right there. I click on it with my black arrow, so I select the shape. Then I go to my eraser again, and I just scrape off that extra pink. It's not going to erase your lines because I didn't select the lines. You can only erase what is currently selected. So if this pink shape is the only thing selected, that's the only thing I'm going to be erasing. It will not erase the black because that layer is locked. Okay, so that's the beauty of locking your layers. You protect what's on them. So I'll just scrape off all that extra pink where I made that mistake. And now when I zoom out, I've got a nice solid head. Okay, notice, I'll take that off for a second. Remember, your lines are only lines. Or I could call this hair lines, eyeball lines. Okay, but lines just sit there. There's no fill to them. So when I draw a pattern underneath, it goes right through that character's head. But in between my lines and on top of my pattern is my fill. And it will block the pattern from coming through. Here's what it is. That pink gets in the way of the pattern. So I'll undo. And if this is a black and white image, go to the pink, now that I know it's working, and make it white. So now that character really stands out. Okay, but again, here's another thing that's going to run into play here. Okay, let's say I want to put, I don't know, another oval behind this. So I'll lock these layers, they're good. And then I'm going to click down here underneath everything, and I'll make another brand new layer. I'll double click there and let's call this one, I don't know, back pattern fill. I'll make this red. Okay, and now I'm going to just go in with a rectangle. D for default colors. I'll click on the white and hit the question mark key, and we'll just go with the rectangle. So let's say I want to draw a rectangle right through here. And I want to fill that with a dot pattern. So I go to my swatches, click on swatch libraries. I have patterns, basic, and we'll go with dots. And watch the line pattern right here. We'll go dots. And now I see right through and I'm making another big mess. Patterns are transparent. So if I strip off everything else and look at this circle, I can see my drawing right through there. Let's turn this off. My drawing shows right through the pattern. Okay, so what you have to keep in mind is patterns. They're not black and white. They're black and nothing. That all the white area is the white of the paper. It's transparent. Imagine this pattern is printed on a sheet of glass. You're going to see right through that glass like that. Okay, you don't want your artwork to come through like it's doing right there because you're going to get a huge mess. Okay, so here's what you do. Anytime you use a pattern on any shape, you take your black arrow, click on the shape, and you go to your appearance panel, the one that we use for the Xbox cards, if you're in my class. Okay, here's my appearance panel. I'll pull that out. This circle that is selected, it says I have an 8-point stroke and I have a pattern. Okay, but as soon as I turn on another layer, I can see right through it. Let's just fill this red so it's easy to see. I see right through the pattern. So I'm going to have another mess. Just like the head. I got a mess. So if you create a pattern in this circle, you have to go to your appearance panel, click on the fill, and then you go to the pop-up. You add a new fill, similar to what we did with our Xbox cards. Only anytime you go to use a pattern in an object, click on the bottom fill and make it white. See, now the red will not show through. That's how to keep objects from turning into transparent messes on your screen. So let's say I want to do this vine. I'll do this last one right up here. Not the whole thing. We'll just do this little curl for a vine. So I'm going to go way down at the bottom, create another brand new layer. You can never have enough layers. I'll set that to a blue this time. D for default colors. Click on my fill, hit the question mark key, and I'll just take a brush. I'm just going to do a big swirl. So I'm going to right around here. And again, if I let go right there, I'll select that and we'll make it nice and thick like that. If I let go, I'm going to back up, click and drag and overlap the end of that line so it looks like these two connect like that. If I let go there, I'm going to back up, click and drag and overlap the end of that line. So I'll come up to there. Maybe I'll tuck that in like that. See? It all looks like one long continuous, but this is 3 separate lines. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. But when I overlap the ends, it's going to look nice and continuous. I'm going to back up a little bit, click and drag right past that edge. And let's say we have a vine going down to there. And the other end comes up to there. So I go past the edge. I take my black arrow, select, object menu, expand the appearance so it is a tube of color. And that allows me to take my eraser tool and scrape it off right where it hits the black like that. So it stops at the thick end of the line. All right, so now I want to put some color in there. Okay, I'm going to put some texture in it. So I'll double click that and we'll call that Vine Lines. Lines are only lines. You lock them when you're done. Your colors go under your lines. That is the most important thing. Lines stay on their own layer. Colors go on their own layer under that. So I click the layer underneath the vine lines, add another brand new layer, and we'll call that vine color or vine fill. Okay, like I did before, just so you could see it, I'll set my color to green, and I will trace right around underneath this black outline. Going right down the middle. I'm tucking under the line because I'm on a layer below it, so it's not going to cover up my line art drawing. And I make my way back to the start. Okay, this will disappear behind everything because that circle is filled with white. So it just tucks out from behind. And then everything else sits on top because I drew a head shape of white. So now I could click on this, and instead of green, I'm going to go back into my swatches, bottom left corner. I'll come down to patterns, basic textures, and let's see what this is. Sticks. Okay. Don't like sticks that much. There's mezzo tint. Okay. Let's try mezzo tint. Okay, that really doesn't stand out very well, so here's a great trick. Let's say I want that to be twice as dark. Okay, but I can't. That's the design of the pattern. So I click on my pattern fill. I can go to the pop-up, and I can either add a new one or change this pattern first. This pattern's kind of small. So right here is my scale tool. I can double-click scale, and then Illustrator is going to ask me, what are you trying to scale? I'm not trying to scale any corners. I'm not trying to scale any strokes. I'm not trying to scale the object. I'm trying to transform or scale the pattern in that object. So let's say I go here and I type 150. Turn the preview on and off. So there's before and there's after. Okay, I can make the pattern bigger. I click OK, but it still looks dull and gray. So on my pattern fill, on my appearance panel, I click the pop-up, add a new fill, and all that does is copy the previous one. So I have the same pattern on top of each other. I go right next to my scale tool to my rotate. Double click, and it's going to ask me the same thing. What are you trying to rotate? Are you trying to rotate the object? No. I want the vine to stay as it is. I'm trying to transform the pattern. So I'll highlight that, and let's say 45 degrees. Turn the preview, and now I'm flipping a pattern on top of another pattern. I click OK. I'll add another fill. It copies the previous one. Double click. Now I've rotated a pattern over a rotated pattern. OK. Click the pop-up, add another new fill, double click, and I've rotated it 4 different times. So now I've created a whole new pattern that doesn't exist in Illustrator. I created that. Cool. So now I'm getting some shades of gray. Last thing I'll show you, Command S. Let's say I want these to be solid black silhouettes, kind of reminiscent of the antlers. Every time you're done, lock, go below, create a brand new layer. It's very important you lock the ones above the one you're working on. I'm going to double click on the right, make those magenta, and we'll call that black flowers. D for default colors. Click on the white, hit the question mark key, and since I am working behind, that means overlap. So I'm going to start way down here. I'll go up and around right there. Option for a corner. Option for a corner. And then when I go right through the other shapes or under the other shapes, now I can see right through this pattern again. Patterns are transparent. That is not black and white. That's black and transparency. So if I'm trying to tuck something behind a pattern, you unlock it, select it. All of these patterns have transparency. So you click on the bottom one, add a new fill, and the very bottom fill will be white. Okay, I'll click yellow just so you can see it. But notice that color blocks this from showing through. So I'll just fill that white. It's a black and white project. Now I'll come back down here and I could draw anything I want. And it will automatically tuck behind that pattern like this. I'll go way down here. Doesn't matter, you're not going to see it, because you tucked it underneath the white shape. And I just find my way back to the start. And now I go here, overlap my shape, we'll go up and down and up and down, up and down. This is why I don't draw with a fill. I can't see my template. So always draw with a black stroke first. That way you're not covering up your scan. You can actually see what you're supposed to be drawing. Then fill it with color. Okay, so you can see if I drew a big rectangle, it's just going to tuck behind. So that is my lesson for you in creating brush tips, using your basic right here on swatches, patterns basic, those are all black and white. If you use a pattern, throw a white fill under it. You've done that before with the Xbox card. So what I show you on an Xbox card will apply to what I'm showing you here. If you're watching this out there on YouTube and you don't know what I'm talking about with Xbox cards, that's because you haven't taken my class. So bummer for you, but I talked to my class about the appearance panel before. Okay, that's what I'm making reference to. So there you go. That's how you deal with pattern fills. You start stacking layers. That's why I had you work on layers the first week. You're going to need them here in Project 1. You're going to need them in Project 2 and Project 3 and Project 4. Build up your layers. Let's just get rid of that ugly red. Turn off my scan, and I got a good illustration started right here. Okay? There we go. That's how you stack, and that's how you deal with patterns with your appearance panel. Always stack a pattern and tuck a white fill under it. You will have no problems whatsoever. Always put your line art first, and then tuck your fill under the line art. Okay? It tucks under like that. Always like an animation cell. You have the animator do the drawing, and then you paint under the drawing like that. And then once you have a fill, new objects can go behind that. If I have a white fill here, new objects can go out from behind that. And if I have a white fill on the bottom of my patterns, right here, white fill, new objects can go behind that. Okay, so there we go. Let's put this back to white the way it should be. And I would continue from there. But every time you're finishing a good part, save, save, constantly be saving. Don't lose the quality of your work. Don't lose your file, or you get to start that all over again, and that's the last thing on earth you want to be doing. So good luck with Project 1. I look forward to seeing what you got for me.